prop firm industry has just changed forever. If you haven't seen the news, one of the largest and most well-known prop firms in this space, FTMO, has finally, even though it was long overdue, removed their time limits. This means that traders no longer have to make 10% in 30 days for phase 1 and 60 days to pass phase 2 with a profit target of 5%. This is fantastic news for traders. It's long overdue. Lark Funding, since we launched in June 2022, have had no time limits. There's a lot of other firms that have no time limits. So this is now officially a thing of the past, and my Forex fund has followed suit by also announcing that they are removing their time limits. This is fantastic for traders. There's no two ways around it, but it does bring up an interesting and important discussion that we need to have, how this is going to impact the industry as a whole. And that is what we're going to break down in 4 or 5 different parts in this video today. Number 1 is a value proposition. So many firms, including Lark Funding, have relied on them differentiating themselves from my Forex funds and FTMO, and even the funded trader for a long time, by having no time limits. It was their main value proposition. And now that this no longer differentiates you from other firms, any firm that is offering a time limit still is going to die. Firms are now going to need to get creative in terms of what their next value proposition is. These large firms are always going to be slower to innovate. They're more corporate, they don't have as much flexibility, whereas newer firms that are younger, not quite as big, are able to innovate much faster. That is why we had no time limit since we launched the company last year. Now, needing to offer and find a new value proposition is good for traders. It's a good thing. Companies need to get creative, but it does have its downsides. And this is really the main meat of the conversation that we need to have. As I've been saying for a long time, even before I started Lark Funding and I just had the Meet Matt L YouTube channel, I've been saying that prop firms are going to become a commodity. This is because there is not much more room for innovation from the challenge side. Now we see some firms offer a phase 1 profit target of 7%. Is one going to come out 6%, 5%? Firms are going to get so low on the challenge targets until some of them go under, some of them go bankrupt, some of them have to shut down because it's simply not sustainable. Remember, a prop firm is designed to filter out the traders from the gamblers. The easier you make it, the more gamblers come through and the more risk it puts on the firm. So I think there is still a little bit more room to push the limit and push the boundaries on challenge targets, drawdown limits, all of that good stuff, but we're pretty much at the end of it. And that means that firms are now going to need to get creative. This means for firms, and what it means for Lark Funding, is that we're always going to try and push the boundary on our challenges. Traders are always going to want to have no time limit. Traders are always going to want to have a smaller profit target, larger drawdown levels, and we would love to bring that to the market, and that's what we've been doing. However, it's all about finding that balance. We only implement a change if we know that it's going to allow us to still be around in 10 years, 20 years, however long it is. Every decision we make is in terms of sustainability and being risk managed, whereas newer firms that are trying to launch, that have just launched, it's going to be incredibly difficult because larger firms have a lot more capital behind them, a lot more experience, in terms of risk management. And so they can implement certain changes that newer firms that have very little capital behind them are actually going to be able to implement. So I do see the opening of prop firms, the rate and volume decreasing, or at least firms entering the so-called zeitgeist of the prop firm industry. You know, on Twitter, those top 10 firms that we see all the time. I think it's going to be much more difficult to penetrate that just because it's now become a commodity. And that really brings it back to that value proposition. What is it that firms are going to offer as value? And this opens up a really interesting discussion, because if it's no longer going to be the challenges, I think it now has to be horizontal movement, right? So what can firms offer to differentiate themselves, to provide more value to traders? There's a lot of things at Lark Funding that we're working on, but I really think it comes down to the overall customer experience, the dashboard, competitions we've been offering for 6 months now. They're completely free. That's something that traders like. What's the customer service like? Any other small things that a firm can do to provide more value, that's what Lark Funding is focused on. And I think that's what we're going to see the industry move towards over the next 6 to 12 months. And that brings us to another 2 important points. Number 1, if a firm comes out and starts slashing their profit targets and drawdown levels, there's going to need to be a shift from traders in terms of going with the firm that has the best challenge to the firm that they know is actually going to pay them out. If a firm comes out and has a 1% profit target, it doesn't matter if you can pass if they're not going to pay out. So I do think there needs to be a shift in mindset from traders. Prop firms are needing to shift in terms of their value prop, and traders need to shift in terms of more sustainability rather than the easiest challenge. So that's something that's important to consider. Lastly, and this is something that I would really appreciate hearing from you guys, because again, at Lark, we're trying to provide as much value as we can. The question is, and the question we've been asking on Twitter, I've been asking on Twitter, is what is a feature that is not standard in the prop industry right now that in 1 to 2 years will be? So let's take time limits, for example. A year ago, we had no time limits, but it was not an industry standard. It only just became one now. And now we're gonna look back in a year and say, wow, traders had to make 10% in 30 days. That was ridiculous. That was so dumb. And it was. So what is it going to be in the next 1 to 2 years that isn't currently industry standard? A couple ideas that we have is, 1, our hands-free passing, which means that you don't need to close your trade in order to pass the profit target. So imagine you're close, you're in that last trade, that last 1 to 2% that you need to make. You're staring at the screen, and as soon as your trade hits the profit target, you rush, you hit the close trade button to try and, get there. You don't have to do that at Lark. The second that your trade crosses the profit target, we recognize it as a pass. You don't need to close it. We don't close it. You're done. I think that's going to be industry standard because it's just so helpful to the trader. And second one that I do think a lot of firms should consider is our Lark Profit Protector, which means that if you're funded and let's say you're up 10% on a 100K account, you've made $10,000, you breach the daily drawdown limit, so you now only have $5,000 worth of profits in your account, we will still pay you out. You've earned those profits, you deserve those profits, so we will still pay you. Whereas not many firms, the majority of firms don't have that. And so I do think that that is a great differentiator that we have that I do think more firms will offer in the future. But this is where you guys come in. I would love to hear in the comment section on Twitter, drop us a message. I want to hear what you guys think will be industry standard because we want to bring that to you. Lark Funding, as I've said on Twitter, we're not the largest prop firm out there, but that's actually an advantage in our eyes because we're more flexible, we can be more innovative, and we can more easily offer a great trader and customer experience. And that is what we are here for. So I look forward to hearing from you guys. Thank you for watching this video. The prop firm industry is moving so quickly, but it's such a great opportunity for traders, and I'm excited to see and be a part of all of the changes that are coming. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and until then, peace.